The night it happened, the sky above Earth was calm, filled with stars that had watched over humanity for thousands of years, giving no hint of the terror rushing toward them. In an underground observatory just outside Canberra, Australia, a young scientist named Dr. Anya Kessler stared at the screen, her coffee forgotten and cooling beside her. She had picked up something unusual, a tight beam transmission coming from deep space, stronger than anything they'd ever seen before, and it was heading directly toward Earth. At first, she thought it might be a mistake, some sort of signal bounce or an error in the array. But as more data streamed in, her face paled. The signal was real, and it was no friendly greeting. A sequence of pulses turned into language structured, sharp, and terrifyingly clear. Translated by Earth's most advanced AI linguistics model, the message left no room for misunderstanding. We are the D-Relin Imperium. Your world is now under our rule. Submit or be erased. The words repeated in hundreds of languages, ancient and modern, some of which hadn't been spoken in centuries. Within hours, global governments were in a frenzy. Every space agency, military leader, and scientific mind was pulled into emergency meetings, locked down in war rooms that hadn't been used since the Cold War. News stations around the world went silent, replaced by carefully worded messages urging calm. But in secret, leaders prepared for the worst. Earth had 72 days, according to the transmission, before the fleet arrived, and that number ticked down like a doomsday clock visible only to those in power. Commander Marcus Rice, head of Earth's orbital defense program, was among the first to be briefed. A former astronaut and tactician, he had seen many things that made him believe in the impossible, but nothing prepared him for the sheer size of the threat. Long-range telescopes picked up the fleet near the edge of the solar system, a swarm of metallic shapes moving with unnatural precision, dozens of massive capital ships surrounded by thousands of smaller vessels, like a cloud of angry steel wasps. They weren't just passing through, they were coming with purpose. Humanity had no experience with alien war, but the D-Relin formation alone suggested conquest, not diplomacy. Rise immediately ordered satellite defenses to be activated, orbital stations to be reinforced, and experimental weapons that had only been tested in theory to be assembled. Scientists and engineers around the globe worked day and night, old enemies cooperating under the shadow of mutual extinction. For once, humanity acted as one. And yet, despite the preparations, fear lingered in every corner of the planet. People looked to the stars with unease. The countdown became public eventually, leaked by a hacker group who thought the world had the right to know. Riots broke out. Others turned to prayer. Some built bunkers, some simply partied like it was the end. But in a strange twist of fate, on day 47 of the countdown, the fleet vanished. One moment, every telescope and satellite had their positions tracked near Jupiter's orbit, then nothing. No explosion. No debris. Just gone. Not a trace. Confusion spread fast. Some believed the aliens had cloaked their fleet or changed course. Others thought it was a trick. But Reyes wasn't convinced by any of it. Something didn't feel right. Even more troubling was the silence. No follow-up message. No attempt to re-establish contact. It was as if the D-Relin had simply been erased from existence. While the public celebrated, calling it divine intervention or proof of human power, Rice met quietly with Kessler and a few trusted specialists. They examined every byte of data, every trajectory, every piece of evidence they could find, but nothing explained the sudden disappearance. And then came the miners' report. A small mining colony on Phobos, one of Mars' moons, picked up an energy signature a few days after the fleet vanished. It lasted only seconds, but the signature was unlike anything Earth's instruments had ever recorded. A recon drone was sent. It found nothing. But the signal came again, this time as a broadcast on low frequencies hidden within background radiation. It was a repeating audio message, layered and distorted, clearly not natural. When decoded, it sounded like a scream, multiple voices overlapping, speaking in tones filled with pain, confusion, and dread. Hidden inside the audio, one line stood out. It was clear. It was in English. And it said, "Do not follow. Do not awaken it." Those 7 words chilled Rise more than the entire D-Relin threat. He stared at the message for hours, wondering what it was, and why a hyper-advanced empire like the D-Relin would be afraid enough to leave a warning. Kessler began cross-referencing ancient myths and astronomical records, searching for anything that hinted at a presence in deep space, something old, hidden, and forgotten. What she found wasn't scientific proof, but it was enough to give her pause. Across different cultures, there were stories of a being or force imprisoned beyond the outer planets, sealed away by unknown hands. Some called it the Sleeper. Others believed it was a guardian or destroyer chained in the void, waiting. These were myths, stories passed down through stone carvings and oral traditions. But they shared enough similarities to raise suspicion. Race couldn't dismiss it. Not anymore. If the D-Relin were truly gone, it wasn't because of anything Earth had done. Something had intervened. Something older than war. Something watching from the dark spaces between planets. The kind of thing that didn't make announcements. It simply waited. Quiet. Patient. Hungry. As Reyes looked up from the message, he realized Earth wasn't out of danger. They had been lucky this time. But if something powerful enough to wipe out a galactic fleet existed in their solar system, then humanity had just stepped into a much larger game. One where they weren't the targets anymore. They were witnesses. And maybe, just maybe, they were next. After the strange warning from the vanished D-Relin fleet, Earth held its breath in silence, unsure whether to celebrate or prepare for something worse. Commander Marcus Rise and Dr. Anya Kessler were haunted by the message, "Do not follow. Do not awaken it." It sounded like a curse, but no one knew who sent it or what it really meant. Meanwhile, the news of the D-Relin disappearance spread quickly, bringing relief to some and fear to others. Many people tried to go back to their normal lives, but the tension was impossible to shake. Far away, on the reddish moon of Mars called Phobos, a small mining colony carried on its work, unaware that what they found would change everything again. One night, while scanning the dark edges of the solar system, their instruments picked up a brief flash of energy, something unnatural, brief but bright, just beyond Mars' orbit. This signal was unlike any known source and puzzled the scientists. Commander Rice, determined to understand, ordered a secret reconnaissance mission to investigate. The Heron, a small stealth drone ship, was sent quietly into the shadowy space beyond Mars, heading to the spot where the strange energy had appeared. The crew watched the screen with anxious eyes as the Heron moved closer to the coordinates, but when the drone reached the exact spot, all they found was cold emptiness, no sign of ships, no wreckage, nothing visible. The silence was eerie. Then suddenly, the Heron's sensors detected a weak transmission, a low-frequency signal that barely rose above the background noise of space. The message repeated itself over and over, but it was scrambled, filled with strange sounds and overlapping voices, as if many different beings were calling out at once in fear and pain. The linguists worked day and night to decode it, using every technology available, until a chilling phrase emerged clearly in English: "Do not follow. Do not awaken it." This time, the warning wasn't just a message, but a desperate cry from those who had come before, those who had failed. Dr. Kessler was troubled. She began researching old myths, searching archives and ancient texts, looking for any connection between these signals and Earth's forgotten stories. She found strange references to a guardian locked away in the far reaches of the solar system, a force so powerful that ancient civilizations had tried to keep it trapped forever. The stories described this being as a sleeping terror, held prisoner beyond the known planets, chained by forces humans could barely imagine. It was said that if this being ever woke, it would bring destruction like no other. As Kessler shared her findings with Reyes, he felt a chill run down his spine. If such a creature truly existed, it might explain why the D-Relin fleet had vanished. They had not fled or been destroyed by Earth's defenses. They had stumbled upon something worse. The idea that an unknown force in their own solar system could be responsible for them. Disappearance of an entire alien armada was terrifying beyond belief. Despite this, the world remained unaware of the truth, distracted by celebrations and false hope. Reyes and Kessler realized they had to act quickly. They gathered a small team of trusted experts and planned a more thorough mission to explore deeper beyond Mars, past the asteroid belt, toward the outer planets, and beyond. The ship chosen was the Nyx, an experimental stealth vessel equipped with the latest technology designed to survive harsh environments and hide from prying eyes. As the Nyx left Earth's orbit, the crew felt the weight of the mission. They were venturing into unknown space, into the territory of a mystery that might threaten all life on Earth. The ship's systems began to experience strange malfunctions. Communications became patchy, navigation instruments spun uncontrollably, and some crew members reported hearing faint whispers in their minds. Dreams haunted them, visions of a colossal being wrapped in chains of dark energy, drifting silently in the Kuiper belt, far beyond Pluto's orbit. The being's eyes, glowing like stars, seemed to look right through them, filling their thoughts with cold dread. Kessler studied these visions and began to suspect a psychic connection, a link between the sleeper and the humans who came near it. The sleeper, she concluded, was not just a creature, but a force that reached into the minds of those who dared to approach, warning them to stay away or suffer the same fate as the lost Dorellan. The crew's fear grew as they sailed further into the dark space. Every moment brought new anomalies. Time seemed to shift. Shadows moved without cause, and the stars themselves appeared distorted. But amidst the fear, a strange hope blossomed. Reyes believed that humanity's resilience, their chaotic and unpredictable nature, might be the key to surviving the sleeper's awakening. Unlike the cold, ordered Dorellan, humans were full of contradictions, creativity, and courage. They had survived countless disasters on Earth, and perhaps that stubbornness could save them once again. Meanwhile, back on Earth, governments accelerated preparations. Secret research unearthed ancient sites, pyramids, monoliths, and hidden temples that suddenly showed signs of activation. These structures, once dismissed as myths or relics, began to pulse with energy, as if responding to the threat beyond Mars. Scientists speculated that humanity might have inherited defenses from a forgotten past, protections designed long ago against cosmic threats. Using a network that connected billions of human minds through the internet and satellites, Kessler and her team developed a plan to send a psychic countersignal, a mental barrier designed to restrain the sleeper once again. It was a gamble, a leap into the unknown, but the only chance Earth had. As the Nyx drew closer to the source of the mysterious signals, the sleeper stirred. The dark chains that held it began to crack. The stars flickered and the void trembled. The ancient terror was waking, and Earth was no longer just a distant observer. It was now part of the story, a story of survival, courage, and the fight for the future of humanity. The Nyx moved deeper into the frozen darkness beyond Mars, farther than any human ship had dared before, slipping through cold asteroid fields and past the faint glimmer of distant dwarf planets, carrying its small crew into the unknown. Commander Marcus Reyes watched the stars through the ship's thick viewport, feeling a heavy silence pressing on him, not the silence of peace, but the silence of something watching. Systems began acting strangely, instruments twitched and blinked, and the air inside the ship seemed to grow colder with every passing hour. The crew grew restless, whispers and nervous glances replacing the usual steady hum of their conversation. Dr. Anya Kessler sat alone in the lab, eyes wide as she studied the readings coming from the ship's sensors. The faint energy signature they tracked was growing stronger, pulsing like a heartbeat, but its shape remained elusive, like a shadow slipping between reality and dream. Then the dreams began. It started with one crew member seeing a dark figure chained in the vastness of space, its glowing eyes piercing through the darkness. Slowly, more crew members reported the same visions. Each time the image grew clearer and more terrifying. They saw the sleeper, an ancient, colossal entity, wrapped in chains of a strange dark energy, drifting silently near the edge of the Kuiper belt. Its massive form was both beautiful and horrifying, and its eyes seemed filled with endless sorrow and rage. The sleeper was awakening, and with it, the fear of what it might do. The whispers in the crew's minds grew louder, speaking in voices that were not their own, filling their thoughts with warnings, memories that were not theirs, and feelings of deep loneliness and ancient pain. Some crew members began to question their own sanity. The ship's AI, usually calm and logical, reported strange readings, energy fluctuations, unlike anything in their star charts, gravitational waves that bent space and time, and unexplained bursts of radiation that came in rhythmic pulses. Kessler hypothesized that the sleeper was not just a creature of flesh and bone, but a force that existed beyond normal space, able to reach into the minds of those who approached it. The connection was growing stronger, and the more they got close, the more the sleeper's power affected them. Commander Rice ordered the crew to focus on their tasks, but even he could not hide his growing unease. Their mission was no longer just about investigation. It had become a desperate attempt to understand a force that might end life on Earth. Yet, despite the growing danger, Rice noticed something unexpected. The sleeper's gaze, though filled with sadness and rage, seemed to recognize them not as enemies, but as something else. The entity did not attack, it simply watched. This made Rice wonder if humanity was different, if they were somehow connected to the ancient past that had bound the sleeper. Back on Earth, Dr. Kessler communicated findings with Global Command. The ancient myths and recent archaeological activations now seemed more than coincidence. The pyramids, the megaliths, and the temples pulsing with energy were part of a forgotten network designed to keep the sleeper imprisoned. Kessler believed that humans, unknowingly, had evolved in the sleeper's shadow, protected by this ancient prison. The alien D. Relin had ignored these old warnings and paid the price. The sleeper's chains were cracking because of the D. Relin's intrusion, and the ancient seals were weakening. The only hope was to strengthen these bonds through a psychic network powered by humanity's collective mind. Using technology to link billions of human brains through satellite arrays and neural implants, Earth began broadcasting a mental barrier aimed at calming the sleeper, reminding it of the ancient pact to stay dormant. Meanwhile, on the Negs, crew tensions peaked. Some began to resist the psychic influence, experiencing strange bursts of clarity mixed with terrible headaches. Reyes feared they might lose the battle within their own minds before the physical one began. The sleeper's awakening was not just a threat of destruction. Suddenly, the ship's sensors detected a massive energy surge radiating from the sleeper's location. Space seemed to warp and pulse, and the stars twisted into strange shapes. The Nyx trembled under invisible forces, as if space itself was alive and fighting against them. Reyes ordered the ship into defensive mode, shielding vital systems and preparing for anything. But the sleeper did not attack. Instead, it sent a wave of raw emotion, pain, regret, and hope flooding the ship. The crew was overwhelmed, tears streaming down their faces as they felt the weight of countless centuries of solitude. Kessler realized this was the sleeper's way of communicating, not with words, but with feelings and images, sharing its story of imprisonment and loss. It was a prisoner of its own power, trapped by ancient beings who feared its destruction. Yet, it was also a protector, held to guard the solar system from an even greater evil hidden beyond the stars. This revelation stunned Reyes and Kessler. They understood now that the sleeper was not simply a monster to be destroyed, but a complex force intertwined with humanity's destiny. The D. Relin, with their cold ambition, had been blinded by conquest and failed to see the delicate balance keeping the solar system safe. As the Nyx moved slowly away from the sleeper, the chains around it shimmered and began to glow faintly again, signaling that the ancient prison was reactivating. But the mission was far from over. The sleeper's awakening had revealed that Earth was now part of a cosmic war that stretched beyond imagination. Reyes looked at his crew, weary but determined, and made a silent vow: humanity would not run from the darkness. They would face it, armed with courage, unity, and the strange, unpredictable spirit that made them human. The stars were no longer distant points of light, they were the battlegrounds of a new era, and Earth stood ready to fight for its place among them. The sleeper stirred, but so did humanity, and their story was only just beginning. After the awakening of the sleeper, Earth's calm shattered, replaced by a tense urgency that gripped every corner of the planet. Commander Marcus Reyes and Dr. Anya Kessler returned from their mission aboard the Nyx with heavy minds and new fears. The truth they had uncovered, that humanity was caught in the middle of an ancient cosmic struggle far beyond their understanding, was both terrifying and oddly empowering. The sleeper was more than a prisoner. It was a guardian, bound by chains not of iron, but of ancient power, keeping a greater darkness locked away. But those chains were weakening. Back on Earth, governments scrambled to prepare, shifting priorities from petty politics to survival. Scientists worked feverishly to understand the psychic barrier designed to hold the sleeper's power in check. This barrier relied on connecting human minds through advanced neural networks, using empathy and willpower to reinforce the ancient prison. It was a delicate balance, and every day the strain showed. The mental link spread through billions of people, but it was fragile. The pressure of fear, doubt, and panic threatened to crack it. Some people fell into despair, others into madness. The world was on edge. In orbit, the Nyx was refitted with new technology to detect and resist psychic waves, preparing for what might come next. Crew members underwent rigorous training to strengthen their mental defenses and learn to work with the psychic link rather than against it. Commander Reyes knew that humanity was standing on a knife's edge between survival and annihilation. The sleeper's presence was a reminder that power like theirs was not to be underestimated, but also that human spirit was unpredictable and fierce. Meanwhile, deep in the shadows of the solar system, the sleeper stirred more violently. The ancient chains cracked and hummed, their power flickering like a dying flame. Small tremors of energy rippled through space, reaching Earth as sudden storms, strange magnetic shifts, and bursts of unexplained radiation. Scientists struggled to explain these phenomena, unaware of the true source, the sleeper's slow awakening. Dr. Kessler and her team worked with urgency to improve the psychic network. Using satellite arrays and the newly developed mind web, they aimed to create a mental fortress, linking minds in a way that could push back the dark force trying to break free. At the same time, this connection revealed new dangers. Psychic echoes of the sleeper's pain seeped into the minds of millions, causing nightmares, hallucinations, and unexplained emotional swings. The line between reality and fear blurred. The world's leaders debated what to do next, some pushing for offensive action against the sleeper, others calling for caution and diplomacy. Yet no one truly understood the ancient being's nature, its purpose, or its limits. Commander Reyes pushed for unity. He spoke openly, calling on humanity to embrace their greatest strength, their shared will to live and protect one another. His words echoed through broadcasts, urging people to focus on hope, courage, and resilience. The Nyx crew, equipped with enhanced psychic shields, ventured once again toward the Keeper Belt, ready to monitor the sleeper's movements and offer support to Earth's psychic defenses. The journey was fraught with danger. The deeper they traveled, the more the fabric of space seemed to twist. Time slowed and sped unpredictably. Instruments malfunctioned in bizarre ways. Crew members felt as if unseen eyes followed them, shadows lurking just beyond the ship's lights. Then, a breakthrough, the Nyx detected faint signs of another presence, hidden in the darkness beyond the sleeper's prison. Something ancient, silent, and vast, an entity whose existence predated even the sleeper. It was a being of pure darkness, spreading cold like a shadow across the stars. This was the true evil the sleeper had been chained to guard against, a cosmic force bent on consuming light, life, and hope. The revelation shook the crew to their core. Their mission was no longer just about containment, but preparing for a battle that could decide the fate of not only Earth, but the entire solar system. Back on Earth, the psychic network began to show signs of strain. The connection that once united humanity now risked tearing them apart. People reported losing their sense of self, overwhelmed by the collective consciousness, trapped in a shared nightmare of cosmic horror. Dr. Kessler theorized that this might be the enemy's attempt to infiltrate and weaken humanity from within, to use fear as a weapon. Desperation led to the creation of mental training programs to strengthen individual minds against the psychic invasion. Meditation, focus exercises, and mental discipline became essential survival skills. Humanity's edge was razor thin. In a secret meeting, Reyes proposed a daring plan to use the Nyx and its psychic immune crew as a beacon, a focal point to amplify the mind web's power and reinforce the ancient chains before they broke. It was risky. If the sleeper's prison failed completely, the consequences would be catastrophic. But to wait was to surrender. As the Nix moved closer to the sleeper's prison, the psychic link flared, sending waves of power back to Earth. Across the planet, people felt a moment of peace amid the chaos, a fragile calm that gave hope for the first time in weeks. Yet in that calm lay a warning. The sleeper was still bound, but its chains were weakened, and the darkness beyond waited patiently. Commander Reyes looked up at the stars, knowing that humanity's fate balanced on this fragile thread. The war was not yet begun, but the edge had been reached. What came next would test the courage, strength, and unity of every soul on Earth. And in that moment, humanity showed its true face, not as victims of the cosmos, but as warriors ready to stand and fight. As the Nix approached the edge of the sleeper's prison for the final time, the air inside the ship was thick with tension and unspoken fears. Commander Marcus Reyes stood at the bridge, eyes fixed on the dark expanse ahead, where the colossal chains shimmered faintly in the distant starlight. The ship's systems hummed under strain, the psychic shields glowing softly as they fought to protect the crew's minds from the overwhelming waves of emotion spilling from the ancient being. The link to Earth's mind web pulsed steadily, a fragile lifeline connecting billions of human minds, holding the last hope to strengthen the prison that kept the cosmic darkness at bay. But something had changed. The sleeper was no longer just awakening. It was reaching out not with violence, but with a desperate plea. The psychic network detected a message, not sent through words, but through feelings, a deep, aching sorrow mixed with warning and hope. It was the sleeper's last message. Dr. Anya Kessler, monitoring the psychic signals, felt the weight of the entity's ancient sorrow crushing her soul. The message was clear. The sleeper was bound to protect the solar system from a darkness older than time itself, but the chains were breaking faster than anyone predicted. If the prison fell, that darkness would sweep through the stars, consuming everything. Yet, the sleeper was also asking for help, an alliance between it and humanity, a chance to heal the broken balance. On Earth, people everywhere sensed the shift. The nightmares that had plagued them softened for a moment, replaced by a strange calm, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Governments broadcast messages of unity, and strangers reached out to one another, drawing strength from shared hope. Yet beneath the calm, fear lingered, knowing that the final moments were near. As the Nix held position near the shimmering chains, Reyes ordered the crew to prepare for the psychic ritual designed to renew the prison. Each member took their place, their minds linked not only to Earth but now directly to the sleeper, sharing thoughts, emotions, and memories across impossible distances. The ship became a beacon of light and willpower, the human mind stretching to its limits, weaving together courage and compassion into a shield. Suddenly, the shadows around them twisted violently. The cosmic darkness beyond the prison stirred in fury, sending waves of raw energy crashing against the Nix's shields. The stars flickered, and space seemed to tear apart for a moment, revealing glimpses of endless voids filled with cold and despair. The crew gritted their teeth, pushing through the psychic storm, holding the fragile link together with sheer will. In the midst of this chaos, the sleeper's presence grew stronger in their minds, no longer distant and silent, but a living force reaching out for connection. Its voice, felt rather than heard, was a mix of regret and resolve. It told them stories of ancient battles, of sacrifices made to keep the darkness locked away, and of its own loneliness, trapped between stars for eons. It begged humanity to stand with it, not as slaves bound by fear, but as partners willing to fight for a shared future. As the ritual reached its peak, the Nix shuddered violently. A surge of energy exploded around them, washing over the crew like a tidal wave. Some cried out, overwhelmed by the intensity, but the mind web held firm, the combined strength of millions pushing back the darkness inch by inch. Then, as suddenly as it began, the storm quieted. The chains around the sleeper glowed brighter, their cracked ceiling as ancient power reignited. The vast being's form softened, its glowing eyes reflecting a deep gratitude. The message ended with a promise. As long as humanity stood united, the darkness would remain imprisoned, and the solar system would be safe. But the sleeper warned that vigilance must never falter. The war was far from over. Back on Earth, the psychic connection faded slowly, leaving a silence that felt heavier than before. People opened their eyes, some weeping in relief, others trembling with the weight of what had just happened. Commander Reyes and Dr. Kessler knew the battle was won, but the cost had been great. Humanity had faced a cosmic terror, not with weapons or technology alone, but with the strength of their minds and hearts. The sleeper, once a distant legend, was now a silent guardian watching over them. The final message was clear: Earth had changed forever. The stars were no longer distant points of light, but reminders of the vast forces beyond and the fragile hope that bound them all together. As the Knicks turned homeward, the crew looked back once more at the glowing prison, knowing that their story was not one of endings, but beginnings. The universe was vast, full of mysteries and dangers yet to come. But humanity had found its edge, its strength in unity and resilience. And as long as they remembered the last message, they would never face the darkness alone.